Good evening and welcome to Smart Entrepreneurship Decoded on Transcontinental Times. Over the last 27 weeks, we have journeyed and listened to insights from investors, entrepreneurs, bureaucrats, lawyers, all people from the startup ecosystem, or people who generally mentor young minds in India. While there is a surfeit of mentors and advisors today, something that people from my generation said we didn't have, young people are even more confused than they were earlier. I find it ironical that with this huge mass of Indian leaders who are leading global companies, young people from India, especially entrepreneurs, are not only confused, they try to copy templates that they get off YouTube from some foreign speaker or some foreign motivational speaker or mentor who has no correlation to Indian culture, ethos, and the value system. It confuses them some more. And this whole digital media frenzy that they live in, I don't envy them, but it directs them towards paths that are really superfluous, and they get advice which doesn't work for them. In all this clutter, I was delighted to come across one voice of sanity and reason who doesn't say go faster, but says go slower, who talks about love, compassion, empathy, character building, and things like that, which are not sexy, not something that young people or people want to hear about, but that is what creates careers, that is what creates lives. He's also a living example that you can follow your passion and achieve as much in the second half of your life, even if you went into a government job or something that you thought was a compulsion rather than a choice. He doesn't need any introduction. His books, best-selling books, are a testimony to itself. His TEDx talks have 4 million views. I'm delighted to welcome Vivek Atray to our show tonight. Welcome, Vivek.
Thank you, Nalin. The way you said my name was perfect. I say it the same way, Vivek Atray.
Good. At least I got some things right. It is absolutely my pleasure to have you tonight. Now, we are going to dive right in. You're spoken at so many forums, you're interviewed so many times. People already know a lot of things that you speak about. So I'm going to focus on a few things. Your book, where you spoke about 52 essential life skills that young Indians need. When we look at entrepreneurs today, and I know you guide people of all age groups, including CEOs, but you do a lot of work at the university level. When you look at entrepreneurs today or people, young people wanting to make something out of their lives, which of those skills do you think are the most in need today?
Nalin, it's a very good question. I'm glad you pulled me deep into the deep end right away. And it's very important that we talk about this. First of all, let me thank you for inviting me and Transcontinental Times doing so well, and a great surge for the youth as well, because I believe that thousands of youth follow this program, and I'm honored to be here. Secondly, coming to the point, yes, 52 life skills which I've mentioned for young people in my book. I think a couple of them stand out, and I will mention them in a little bit of detail, not too much. The first is balance. See, what we do, we often overdo our obsessions and passions. And yes, we have to excel in whatever we take up. As you know, Nalin, you have excelled in your career. I've tried to do reasonably well in mine. So what we have to do is go after something, definitely. And we have to be dedicated, devoted, diligent. We have to be getting after something like that, but not getting so obsessed that we will go bonkers if we don't succeed. So the stress will kill us if we are not balanced. And balance also means that if I am a chemistry professor, I can also play the guitar. I can also, read some poetry to my beloved or whatever it is. I can also maybe cook something up in the kitchen or elsewhere. The issue is that balance is the key. So physical fitness, mental fitness, spiritual fitness. And the second skill I'll say, although I'll mention two quickly, empathy and creativity. Empathy for others, it's not a skill, it's a quality which you have to have from within. And if I have empathy for others, the universe conspires to help me. That's the saying. And it is true. I have noticed that ever since I started thinking a little more compassionately of others, and nature has also become now close to me, because I have understood nature a little more. I go for long walks and I spend time in the outdoors. I think I've become more compassionate. It's a great quality for people to have. I'm trying more to build it up. Creativity, maybe we can come to later also, but I do want to emphasize that one has to be truly creative to be happy and successful.
So, balance is a beautiful word in Hindi, Sayam, and
Sayam.
that actually portrays it much better. So, balance, empathy, these are great, absolutely essential skills without a doubt. Now, when people enter entrepreneurship in Sanskrit, probably entrepreneurship came from the Sanskrit word of antarprerna, or at least there is a folklore around it, right? Indians like to claim every word, good word as their own, but probably it came from antarprerna.
Mm.
Do you find this obsessive quest and relentless search for materialistic version of success, and people really don't have the antarprerna for it, but they're chasing it because they think this is what success is supposed to mean?
Lalit, now you're beginning to sound like me totally, and this is exactly what I talk about, and I have learned from my own spiritual pursuit. So, material success will give us temporary happiness. We don't want to get too spiritual here, but I do want to say that if you love mangoes, and I've heard this story from a saint, you love mangoes, you can eat two mangoes, you can eat four mangoes, but can you eat 72 mangoes at one go? So, sorry to say, even mangoes are in the materialistic world. The internal mangoes, that is the happiness or the creative satisfaction or the joy of little things like your nani ji or your child or your sister or your brother or your closest friend holding your hand, giving a hug after the pandemic, these are the things that ultimately you will remember and what really matter. So materialism is going to give us comfort, but beyond an extent, you do not need that bigger car, that bigger house, that plush bungalow. You need a vacation maybe every year, but if you can go to the nearby town instead of going to Goa or even Madrid, if I can say so, it's okay. I mean, you can take a break from your routine and be back fresh. So I think materialism is overrated, and we need to be comfortable in life, and we need to aspire, we need to be ambitious, but we also need to see the bigger picture of life and those little moments of happiness which we'll actually remember to the end of our lives. So just a quick addition to what I said. My teacher in class 9, and I was a new boy, shifted from Delhi to Chandigarh, St. John's High School, Irish brother Murray teaching, and I was nervous. Everybody looked at me, that who's this guy from Delhi. And he asked a question. And that question, I knew the answer. I raised my hand. I said, in the offing. I remember the answer, in the offing, something which is to come. So he says, good boy. Now my nervousness went away. I felt delighted that I'm accepted here. The boys looked at me with new respect. I remember it till today. That good boy emanating from his lips is worth more than any appreciation letters of IAS, of many other things that you get, of any material benefits or accomplishments. So I think one needs to realize that.
So you make an important point about material desires, giving only temporary satisfaction. It's one of the reasons why a lot of people in their midlife, after they have achieved material success and achieved what they set out to do when they were young, they feel a void. They feel something's missing. And I have a famous quote that I give from the boxer Mike Tyson when he went to jail after being accused of rape. And a journalist asked him, why did you do this? And he said, old too soon, wise too late. And that's one of the things, right? How soon do you become wise? And that's probably the difference between careers that don't take off in cricket, because I know you're passionate about it. If Vinod Kambli versus Sachin Tendulkar. Ultimately, life, it will boil down to not who advises you, but who you will listen to. And the first person you need to listen to is yourself. And most people don't do that. Anyway, our audience is here to listen to you today. Talk to me about your new book. Now, this one is not about life skills, but this one is about your life experiences. It is through your journalistic journey. You have explored so many aspects and you've compiled them into this beautiful book which was launched just 3 weeks ago in Chandigarh. I was in town and I missed it. My loss. Talk to me about this book. What made you write this book, and what do you think people can get out of this?
Nalin, thank you very much. But before I talk about my book, let me say you speak so well yourself. You're so accomplished. I must have you on my show. I know it's very irregular for me to say this in the middle of a show, but I've started a show called the Good Vibes Show, and you
Mhm.
emanate these good vibrations. So, sometime during the next few months, I'm going to have you there. As
I
a
would really
police
like.
siren is going by, so good vibrations as well as police vibrations are all part of the game of life. So, my book is called It's Still a Wonderful Life. And it is still a wonderful life. And why do I say still a wonderful life? Because obviously life pushes us down at times. And sometimes we feel that we are hard done by. And why me? That Arthur Ashe story where he said, when I was on top of the world and I won Wimbledon, I didn't ask God, why me? Now, when I'm critically ill and dying, he was dying. He said, I have no right to ask God, why is this happening to me? What a great attitude. So, the attitude to life should be that despite everything that happens to us, it is still a wonderful life. And we have friends, we have family. Everybody has somebody who they can thank for whatever they are, whatever they have, whatever they've been through. And the good times and the bad times are all part of life. Life is unpredictable as long as we live on this earth. We should accept that. So this is the book, but it is, as you said, a compilation of 120 articles in my column. And the column is called Random Forays because the editor of the newspaper told me that you can write on anything you like under the sun. So I named it Random Forays. But now that I've compiled the book, there are actually 14 subjects. And these subjects encompass topics like relationships, the elderly and their difficult times at times, creativity, they encompass governance, humor, social media, and young people and their job aspirations and how careers should be led. And also things like the iconic stories of Amitabh Bachchan, Stephen Hawking, Wing Commander Abhinandan, who became an Indian hero when he crossed over to Pakistan and how he came back gloriously. So, all these personalities as well as stories from my life, I think it's about, writers talk in terms of words, and you are an author yourself. So it's about 80,000 words, about 260 pages. And what I'm told with the reviews on Amazon and what young people are telling me is that it's not a bad read. So, and I have let myself go in this book. So my first two novels and my Finding Success Within, I was conscious of the target audience and I was also growing as an author. But here, because I've written columns, I think the expression is better, the thoughts are better, the ideas are collated well. So the last two books I'm pretty happy with, and this one particularly.
Fantastic. I look forward to reading it. I'm sure it will be really, really
Thank
insightful.
you, Nalin.
But you spoke about this book having a section on young people. Now, young people today, I have children who are 24 and 20, and I see the kind of spotlight, social media spotlight, and social media frenzy they live in. And sometimes pity is a wrong word, but sometimes empathy is too soft, somewhere in between. I don't like that life of what they're going through. What would be your advice to young people who are on this social media treadmill and frenzy? What do they need to do? How do they pause? How do they cut that cycle?
Again, you asked a very pertinent point. And when the young people of today are analyzing their lives, they understand that Swiggy will deliver a gulab jamun within 10 minutes and do anything for you. Technology is the way to live. Nalin, you and I are also, let me put it, you are younger than me, but I mean, we're not that young. So let's say that these people, these young people, they need to spend time offline. And I personally feel that a bit of discipline in the beginning or even in the middle of your stint with social media will help. So, if you are awake till 4 a.m., young people, and you are on Instagram, you are chatting with someone otherwise, you're waiting for the blue ticks from the other side, the other person has gone to sleep, and you're unnecessarily lying awake. I mean, you need to get a life. And as I said earlier, overdoing anything is not a good idea. Balance is the key. Now, I love Instagram. I have large numbers of followers on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. So I love being there, but I also have to be disciplined and extricate myself from the clutches of social media, if I can put it that way. And sometimes we tend to overdo it. And my wife is much calmer. So I learn from her at times. She will leave her phone in another room. I can never leave my phone. It has to be with me. So I think we all need to be more harsh with ourselves when it comes to social media. We need to be the masters. And I've spoken about artificial intelligence and the human experience, where we might have a chip implanted in our wrist, unfortunately, or fortunately, in a few years from now, and that will become our smartphone. We still remain human beings. So we have to get a life. And I would say sports, physical fitness, reading books, company of friends, calling on. We've stopped calling on people for a cup of tea as we used to in India. Phone kiya, hum log aa rahe hain, we're coming for a cup of tea. I mean, the guys are just, yeah, please come. So no formalities. So all these things have reduced, and social media's grip has increased. We need to remain the masters of social media, and young people can do it by making determined efforts, and especially getting into outdoor exercise. I think that really helps.
Very, very true. Growing up, I had never heard the words depression and things like that, or even heard of a psychiatrist. Though when I was young, very often, if I was young in these times, my parents would be sending me to one pretty soon. But I had never heard of it when I was young. Let's shift focus a bit. Let's talk about leadership, corporate, spiritual, social, economic, whatever leadership in general. To my mind, you can coach a leader on a lot of things, but a couple of things I find either people have it or they don't have it, and I just want to pick your brain on that. One, clarity of thought. I believe it's a gift. I find it difficult to coach people on that, and the other is I can teach them entrepreneurial skills, but I can't teach them how to be an entrepreneur. What are your views on that? I mean, are there things that are just gifts with leaders or people?
It's a wonderful question. I totally agree with you. You see, there are certain things we're born with, but the autobiography of a yogi, which I follow, and I really love that book, has a chapter called Outwitting the Stars. Now, we are born with certain traits. It is said we are born under certain sun sign, certain destiny, but we can improve our destiny, he says. And by improving our skills, we can improve our performances. Now, you mentioned two things which are absolutely correct. How do I develop that, that risk-taking mindset or a careful mindset? It is difficult to change what I already am. And the entrepreneurial, I mean, if you are an entrepreneur by heart, then you will only become better with training and skills, but you have to be probably an entrepreneur by heart. So there are people, as I said, in let's talk about two states of North India which have capitals at Chandigarh, Punjab and Haryana, where I live. So in Punjab, they're born entrepreneurs. The Punjabi is a born entrepreneur. He will set up anything anywhere, and he'll do wonderfully well at it. He'll do his best. The Haryanvi wants to be a government officer, wants his son to be employed in the police. And my dad was in the police, and he would say to those who came to him that we want our son to be a constable. He says, make him study, and if he's good enough, he'll become an ASI, which is a slightly senior level, assistant sub-inspector. So don't come to me for this constable thing. And that was the time when officers could just see a guy and he was fit and intelligent, they would recruit him. Olden days. But here, the mindset of an individual that you spoke about can be altered to an extent, can be changed to an extent. Now, let me give you an example. I used to be on another level, very conscious of what people think, Nalin. When I was growing up, I was a cricketer, as you mentioned. I used to be wondering, what if I get out on 0? What if I get out on below 10? Now, if I'm thinking like that, the law of attraction says that the chances I'm going to be out before 10. But I used to be conscious of my coach, my dad, my mom. What will I say to them when I go back home? So it was a weakness. It was a psychological weakness, which I have overcome. And today, speaking before 5,000 people or 20,000 people or saying what I want to say is not difficult for me. Being what I want to be is not difficult for me. Having coffee with someone I want to have coffee with is not difficult for me. So it is a change that I've brought about. I think we can also change those skills and qualities which you mentioned. But if we have a head start, it's definitely more beneficial.
Yeah. So I see leaders, right? There are some who will say, I may be wrong, but I'm not confused. This is a path we are taking. I may be wrong, but I'm not confused. There are others who say it is better to discuss and be confused and choose a right path. Is it either or is it contextual to a situation?
It's contextual to a situation, and confusion is human. We are not binary machines. I mean, as an electronics engineer, I can only say that, I mean, we are not either or, we are not zero or one. So, life is about the shades of gray, not necessarily 50 of them, but whatever. We need to understand that these are gray areas. So there is nobody who's completely a leader. He will have some shortcoming, or she will have some shortcoming, some fear factor. And there is nobody who is totally a zero in leadership. He will have some quality which will make him go forward. So I think that even decision making is about, gut instinct also. You have the facts before you, you go by the logic, but ultimately you have to take a call, and that risk, or that call has to come, and that is something which we need to know about. So it's not either, confusion is fine, but confusion has to be cleared by the leader ultimately. He can be confused as hell, and he can change his decision by morning, and he was not able to sleep at night, but when the time comes, he has to decide and deliver. That is leadership.
So let's look at it in your own life. You mentioned that you were not born in an entitled family. Uh, you had to make your own path through the Haryana Civil Services, then the IAS, and then you voluntarily left with a very successful career. But initially, you always were looking up to for validation from others, whether you were doing well, whether you were doing right, like you mentioned on the cricket field. So when you're going through a successful career like this, and you're probably at the peak of your, prowess, skill, etc., what clicks that makes you leave and follow this? I mean, of course, when I did that, my wife called it madness. I'm sure your wife had a politer word for it. But what clicked? What made you do it? It's a risk, right? You could have very well sat there all your life with a pension. You don't really need to step out. There's no point doing it. So, what made you take the risk? Because it is not about financial stability, it is not about achievement, but by stepping out, you have risked social condemnation, shame, embarrassment, so many things, right? So, how does one think at that stage?
Nalin, it's a wonderful question again. I must compliment you on your interview. This is super, going very well, and you're bringing out the best from me. Now, this question comes to me every time, but the way you've put it, people called it a bold decision politely. What they meant was you're very stupid, and you said madness. Now, my wife, let credit to her, she took about a year to be convinced. 1 year. I took 4 years in all to convince and plan and everything. I knew that I'm going to leave one day. And I did a posting called, as you know, a district magistrate or a deputy commissioner, which is supposed to be the key post in India for an IAS officer. After that, I would have only become senior and senior and senior and sit in the secretariat with the chief minister and the chief secretary and others and listen to their wisdom. Now, here I am, an action man, hopefully. I wanted to do something different. And I realized that I have it in me to be more creative. I also realized on the flip side that youth need to listen to people like me as a motivational speaker. The stresses they're going through, I need to go, you need to go, younger people need to go and talk to them and tell them it's okay, chill. So I try to use their lingo, I try to connect, and as an IAS officer, I started doing it. I realized I have something in this. So all the conditions were right for me to leave. I also got an assignment as an advisor to a university, advisor and mentor to some other organization. So it worked well for me. But I had to plan. I did not take a rash, drastic step. I'm very glad I did so. I left 4 years later. And let me say that the IAS community, the Sarkari community, the community with which I work, the people, the goodwill which hopefully I accrued is definitely coming in handy now. So, sitting at a cafe, people will just come up to you anyway. Sir, you made my day when I met you in your office 10 years ago. You did that and did that. So that's what makes me, feel that I did the right thing. I'm not losing anything, and I've gained a lot of independence.
So I completely agree. People should listen to voices like yours. I call you the voice of reason and sanity in this digital frenzy. But talk to me about something different that I see socially today. So when I go to small young schools, etc., nowadays children get a certificate just for participating and showing up. Okay, that was not how we got it, right? Either you came first, second, third, or you were a nobody. So for any social activity, people get a certificate for just showing up. When this generation comes to the workplace and sees the real world of entrepreneurship or jobs, what do you, where does motivation start in this? I mean, how do you even start motivating these people who have been motivated through these frivolous certificates and degrees from KG and lower KG?
Yeah, motivation has really nothing to do with them. And you're very right. You see, in India, it is said that when a politician holds a rally, most of the people are there because he promised them free lunch and about 1,000 rupees or 500 rupees, or earlier it used to be 20 rupees. So they didn't come for the certificate, but they came for that. Now, in pandemic times, people wanted more numbers on their shows or on their conferences. They said, okay, e-certificates for everybody. So 500 people attended, right? Now, these things, they matter, but the experience matters more. So I think getting a certificate without having gone through the ropes is meaningless. Without having ingrained what happened at that conference is meaningless. Without having enhanced your skills, it's meaningless. So we need to be. So I often say that it's not what you have or what you say or what you do, but what you are that matters. What you are matters. So the young people of today have to realize that all the while, all these certificates don't matter unless they are becoming better versions of themselves. And that's my answer.
Couple of last questions before we wind up. Uh, you are right now in a state, at least a bordering state of Punjab, etc., which is virtually colonizing Canada. What's your view on this rush to go over and do jobs as station agents and stuff like that? And what's driving this completely?
See, I have never had aspirations of living abroad myself, so I really can't understand it. I know that you do, and but Punjab has this aspiration because I think there is a feeling that India is not treating Indians well enough. It is not right. I think the system is not working as well as it should, no doubt. But India is a rich country in terms of people, and people who bond, people who love each other, who care for each other. So a lot of society in India is still very traditional. Families are strong, and I think people should look at that part before migrating to Canada, working at a lower status, as you said, than they would here, and getting a better quality of life physically, materially, but then missing their families. So I often go to youthful gatherings and tell them, yeah, don't go to Algeria or Armenia or America or all these A's and leave the India eye. And, we need to be in India for a substantial period of our lives as Indians. Maybe for a few years you can go and live abroad. But don't do that and then sending money to your parents and meeting them only once in 5 years. So I think it is something which compels Punjabis to go abroad, is the wave that exists. There are still lots of them doing well here. So I think it is not going to be stopped or stalled. But if the state itself improves in various matters, then some will stay back at least.
It's true. We are living in India in one of the greatest economic times. Even right now, it's one of the fastest growing economies in the world, and there is these hordes of people trying to find shelter in countries that are growing at half the rate.
Yeah.
So I find it ironical as well. But we're completely out of time. I'm going to end with my last question to you. Now, when with the thoughts you have and the wide canvas you speak about, and you spoke about a broken system, you can really bring about a larger change only through politics. Is that something you would ever consider?
So I have a lot of people telling me to do so, but I think I have ideas of getting into more of thought leadership. And I think thought leadership is more important than political leadership in my, at least for me. So you can influence a lot of thoughts and trends and leadership decisions if you are relevant enough. We have a think tank called Suvichar, of which General VP Malik, former Army Chief, is the chair. We have eminent people. So I am into that kind of mode. And I know you're running out of time, but lastly, I'll just say that, I mean, whatever we discuss today is relevant to a large number of people. So I'm going to request whoever watches this show to share it with others, reach out to the youth more and more, and to older people as well. And I'm sure Nalin and I will be very happy to stay connected with you and on social media. So let's stay that.
Absolutely delighted to host you, Vivek. Have a great evening and a great life ahead. Talk to you again soon.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.